In the year 20,123, the virtual reality game launched its test and quickly became a global craze. On the first server day, mysterious power spilled into reality, granting early players abilities amid chaotic urging shouts. Within a few short years, society repeatedly collapsed, and among the crowd a frail young man was dragged like a prisoner. That was Ye Shen, the only one to solve Xing Yao's hidden challenge, yet foolishly exposed himself without enough backing. He caused losses to his teammates, lost his freedom, and was turned into a tool of powerful forces. A messy-haired man shouted impatiently for speed since the boss hadn't appeared, but Ye Shen coldly threatened to break his leg. Walking calmly with sharp eyes, he said it was still 2 kilometers away and led the way himself. The group laughed mockingly, saying bosses rarely appeared, but if one did, it would surely carry divine gear far beyond normal. A blond man chimed in, praising Ye Shen as someone with real ability. He had once been the sole survivor among thousands who attempted the challenge years ago. If not for exposing his identity, people would have assumed all the others had perished. They all continued their journey into the darkness. The sound of chains clanked with Ye Shen's steps, echoing through the silent night. One man shouted angrily when he stopped, threatening his life. Ye Shen turned with icy eyes, declaring that the boss they sought was actually standing right before them. His words made the opponent sweat, as if facing a demon, trembling at his terrifying aura. Ye Shen clenched his fist, and a raging purple light exploded around him. A SSS-level dungeon called Celestial Sacred Palace was suddenly activated. The group panicked, and a burly man cursed upon realizing they were tricked, urging his comrades to flee the death trap. They fled in terror, while Ye Shen stood coldly, declaring that anyone under level 70 entering here would only face death. He roared, dragging everyone down to hell with him. Suddenly, a tall woman appeared behind, exuding dominance, declaring this place her hibernation ground. She raised a massive staff resembling Sun Wukong's weapon and swept it at the crowd. The blazing golden light turned into countless flying arrows. They chased relentlessly after their prey. Ye Shen remained unmoving, quietly watching the arrows rushing toward him. A serene smile flickered on his lips, as if accepting that everything had ended. In the hazy void, a familiar voice called Ye Shen to wake up, reminding him of today's outing with his sister. He awoke, seeing a red-haired woman with mischievous eyes, stunned as he muttered in disbelief. The woman laughed, warning that if he didn't get up, she would act for real. He realized it was his elder sister, still unable to believe, eyes cautious and probing. She giggled teasingly, saying her brave little brother forced his loving sister to wake him up herself. Ye Shen suddenly sat up. His forehead was covered in sweat. He glanced around the room, trying to avoid his sister's gaze. His fingers pinched her thigh lightly to confirm reality, and the atmosphere fell silent. The sister grew furious, her cold eyes radiating killing intent. She shouted for him to stop and delivered a terrifying kick straight to his stomach. His body was flung hard, crashing against the wall. He spat blood, and a large crack appeared on the wall behind him. The hanging calendar showed April 10th, year 2023. He had gone back 5 years, exactly 1 week before Starry Brilliance's trial launch. Seeing her brother dazed, she worriedly asked, suspecting he felt unwell. She placed her hand on his forehead to check but found nothing. Then Ye Shen suddenly gripped her hand tightly. He asked seriously about the game Starry Brilliance, and she laughed, saying of course she knew since he mentioned that full immersion RPG every day lately. Ye Shen closed his eyes slightly, muttering to himself. He bent down to pick up the tablet lying on the floor. The screen lit up, showing the homepage of the game Starry Brilliance. The log-in 7 days event, daily quests, midnight reset, along with inheritance rewards of items and cultivation were clear. Ye Shen clenched his fist, regretting his past foolishness. He turned to his sister with determined eyes, saying he would help her register an account and needed a verification code, making her frown in confusion and question his purpose. Ye Shen spoke in a deep voice, eyes unwavering, telling her not to ask further, vowing in his heart never to repeat the tragedy of the past life. His sister was surprised, not understanding why her brother suddenly became so talkative unlike usual. Time passed quietly. The game account was created, and the interface revealed mysterious characters. He carefully chose a class for her, suggesting they both be warriors to coordinate more easily. She tilted her head slightly, extending her hand toward her brother. Suddenly, she pulled him tightly into a warm embrace. She whispered that his true purpose didn't seem to be just for his sister's sake. Ye Shen blushed, denying it, saying he planned to choose mage for himself while she became a warrior to form a good team. Hearing that, his sister set aside her doubts, smiling and agreeing to trust him for now. But she reminded him not to drown in the game all day, since as a youth he needed outdoor exercise. He chuckled, about to joke back that she was no different. Before he could finish, his sister stopped and turned her head. A cold smile appeared on her face, mixed with a flash of anger. The cracking sound of joints echoed menacingly. A precise kick struck, sending Ye Shen flying into a chair. He held his head, sighing as he pondered life. Starry Brilliance had 7 main classes: Berserker Warrior, Immortal Arts, Elemental Mage, Psychic, Assassin, Summoner, and a hidden one. Among them, the Berserker stood out with explosive power, fitting his sister's nature and tied to rare inheritance rewards. Memories dragged him back 8 years ago. While imprisoned, a thunderous shout shattered the recollection. "Get lost, all of you!" A violent explosion erupted, sweeping away the black-clad guards. Ye Shen's sister stepped into the scene. Her oppressive aura terrified the guards as she warned that if her brother was harmed, she would annihilate their clan. The soldiers trembled, raising their guns, threatening that she was already surrounded. Ye Shen looked up, realizing it was truly his sister who came to rescue him. But the situation remained overwhelmingly unfavorable. A blond man stepped forward with a scornful tone, mocking her for charging in at level 25 and boasting of the intelligence strategy that allowed him to capture Ye Shen. His sister calmly replied, demanding her brother's release and expressing willingness to negotiate terms. The blonde sneered, claiming Ye Shen belonged to many great clans, and handing him over would bring disaster to the Bai family. She narrowed her eyes coldly, declaring negotiations impossible. With fierce resolve, she vowed to kill him to save her brother and dashed forward with killing intent, surging. The blond man remained indifferent, showing no worry. A massive, muscular giant appeared to block her, his dark aura forcing her to hesitate briefly. He gathered power, condensing it into a strange magic sphere. With a punch unleashing full magical might, she met the attack head-on. Blood gushed as her eyes rolled back white. The violent explosion shook the entire space. Ye Shen screamed in despair, calling out to his sister. She collapsed, blood spilling from her mouth, still struggling to protect her brother. Witnessing her fall, Ye Shen was consumed by agony, powerless to resist. Pain struck, and his sister could only muster the strength to call his name. With broken words, she tried to leave him instructions. With a final smile, she urged him to keep living, then closed her eyes in death. Ye Shen clenched his fists, hating the 4 great clans, recalling how Bai Yu died to save him, his heart filled with grief. After the memory, he returned to the present, murmuring it was his turn to choose a class. The Immortal Arts class allowed both ranged and melee Dao techniques, but had weak physique unless pursuing a special cultivation path. The game allowed advancement and specialization every 30 levels, but the base class was fixed. Branches included Law, Body, Demon, and Buddha. In his past life, he had chosen Law cultivation for its flashy skills, but regretted it deeply due to poor endurance. He sighed softly, set aside the memories, and prepared for the 7-day log-in quest chain. Ye Shen packed his belongings with determined eyes. From the next room, his sister called, asking if he planned to go out. She stepped out and handed him a premium black card. She reminded him to buy necessities, and if he wanted to make it up to her, he could also bring back some snacks. Ye Shen beamed, accepting the card and assuring her she could trust him with the task. The 7-day login quest required gathering materials, refining medicinal pills to enhance physique from rank D to rank A, but progress was still 0. He worried about lacking funds, but thinking of his sister's card, he laughed, praising her for being so thorough. The scene shifted to Ye Shen's house, where a sudden explosion erupted. Smoke filled the air, and he coughed violently, thinking it was a terrorist attack. In fact, it was just the pressure cooker exploding, revealing shimmering purple pills inside. He grew suspicious, realizing they seemed different from the pills in his past life memories. Still hesitant, he told himself, since they were made, tasting one wouldn't hurt. With some reluctance, Ye Shen popped a pill into his mouth, then instantly widened his eyes and screamed. The taste was so awful it felt like it would kill him. He tried to vomit it out but failed, the flavor like snail noodles soaked with rotten canned fish. The system chimed, congratulating him on successful refinement, rewarding 1,000 experience and a random item, while unlocking a secret newbie gift bag and reminding progress for Quest Day 1-7. Ye Shen stared at the status window, shocked to discover a class-specific quest line that never existed in Starry Brilliance. He suddenly understood the first quest was pill refinement. In his past life, he had missed it by focusing on delivering intel to Bai Yu. He analyzed the concepts of talent, law, body, and spirit, then wondered about companion and domain. He guessed the cultivation path required allies and a suitable place to train. He chuckled, mumbling it was no different from marrying and buying a house. The system again notified him he had consumed a faulty pill, requiring him to raise his physique from rank D to A to break the limit. He sighed, determined to take the risk, wanting to get ahead and make his rebirth worthwhile. The next day, sunlight spread over the early city. Ye Shen began body training, running 20 kilometers while carrying an 850-kilo truck tire, forcing his body to the limit. In the afternoon, in a desolate alley, a man suddenly blocked the path and restrained a young woman. Cries for help echoed through the alley, while her guards lay defeated, making him mock their weakness and even act uninterested. The beauty calmly replied, urging him to state his purpose, affirming money was not an issue. The villain holding a knife smirked, saying someone hired him to kidnap her and he must follow the rules of the trade. He bluntly asked whether she would follow willingly or be tied up and taken. While he kept talking, she quickly sent out a distress location signal. After that, she firmly ordered to start moving, her voice cold and resolute. At that moment, Ye Shen's phone rang, and he irritably thought his sister was causing trouble again. But when he saw the screen, he froze because the signal came from Bai Yu. Memories of his past life returned, recalling that this was the time when Bai Yu had been captured by the Bai family's enemies, and back then he could only call the police. Although she was rescued, the Bai family used that chance to force her to give up the heir position. Afterward, they even exploited the relationship between him and Bai Yu to set up more schemes. They deliberately made her recklessly try to save him, then used that to harm her and seize full power in the clan. He regretted not protecting her in his past life, and this time vowed not to repeat the mistake. Immediately, he took out a treasure, an invisibility cloak that could hide movements but had a 3-day cooldown. Wearing it, Ye Shen quietly set off, dismissing the underlings as insignificant, while declaring that anyone who sold out to the Bai family's enemies must pay with their life. In an abandoned factory, a thug growled, complaining about the bad luck of having to hide away with the Bai family's young lady. His partner laughed, saying the payment was too high to refuse. Bai Yu coldly asked, asserting that the mastermind was Bai Tianyu. One thug replied that he was paid to deal with her, advising her to stay quiet and obedient. He shifted to a sinister tone, hinting that as long as her life was kept, they could do whatever they wanted. He threatened to have fun with her during captivity, demanding obedience if she didn't want to suffer. He reached out with filthy hands intending something vile. Bai Yu felt despair, ready to accept humiliation. At that moment, a purple light pierced through his abdomen. The rescuer appeared. It was Ye Shen. The scar-faced thug panicked, stammering in confusion. Ye Shen replied coldly, only saying he was a cultivator passing by. He removed his concealment hood, reassured Bai Yu, and told her to wait while he handled the kidnappers. One reckless thug still charged in, viciously slashing a knife and shouting threats. He declared that since Ye Shen had appeared, he would never leave. Ye Shen remained unfazed and instantly released a sharp, killing intent. In a flash, he slipped behind the opponent, intending to restrain him. But the man escaped with strange footwork, shouting more challenges. Immediately, all the thugs gathered, forming a tight encirclement. They shouted and charged together, not caring about their lives. Under orders, the armed thugs launched a fierce assault. Seeing this, Bai Yu trembled and fearfully called out Ye Shen's name. But the young man stayed calm, holding 3 power-boosting spirit pills. Without hesitation, he swallowed them all at once. Immediately, energy erupted, and his strength surged sharply. A system voice rang in his head, congratulating his physique upgrade to rank C, while warning of spiritual power overload requiring quick release to avoid fatal danger. Bai Yu froze in horror at Ye Shen's power as the scene turned blood-soaked. In moments, he single-handedly annihilated all the kidnappers, leaving only purple flashes, and the system announced his physique had risen to rank B. The leader still acted fierce, shouting with excitement to test Ye Shen's true strength. Before finishing his words, Ye Shen's hand pressed close, making him cry out in terror. He was smashed headfirst into the wall, the blow like thunder descending. Ye Shen coldly said he had no time to waste. Then the system announced his physique advanced to rank A, granting experience, equipment rewards, and quest progress 1-7. Bai Yu couldn't hold back, rushing to tightly hug Ye Shen, confirming he truly was her classmate. The boy awkwardly pushed her away, explaining he came after receiving the signal, excusing it as late-night training. She frowned in doubt. Ye Shen directly guessed she wanted to use this incident to pressure Bai Tianyu. She was surprised, admitting she indeed planned to strike back at him after the elder's death. He placed a hand on her shoulder, sternly warning that within 7 days a world-shaking disaster would occur, killing countless people, advising her to stay silent and wait. She frowned skeptically, thinking he was speaking nonsense. He solemnly stressed that she must immediately register a Starry Sky game account, put everything else aside, and he would explain clearly tomorrow. Then he urged leaving the place at once, while she worriedly asked if they should just abandon the kidnappers. Ye Shen shook his head, saying he had already called the police before coming, and the law would handle them. Bai Yu looked at him in confusion, with indescribable feelings rising inside. She secretly doubted if this was truly Ye Shen, wondering why he seemed impossibly changed. Back at the apartment, Ye Shen had just entered when his sister shouted at him. She called his name directly. Then she looked at him with a puzzled expression. She scolded loudly, blaming him for maxing out the credit card to buy things, as if hauling back an entire supermarket. He gave a bitter smile, only saying he had his own reasons. His sister frowned and mocked, asking if the apocalypse was coming. He answered seriously that he was indeed preparing in advance, then asked what she would do if it truly happened. His sister laughed mockingly, threatening to drag him for a mental checkup. He sighed, softened his tone, and lied that he bought rare medicinal herbs to take care of her health. Hearing that, she was slightly surprised and reluctantly forgave him this time. He took out a nourishing origin pill, telling her it would be beneficial if she ate it. She looked at the pill suspiciously, asking if it was fake. After that, Ye Shen returned to his room and began cultivation. He realized his body and spiritual power were strong, but without a cultivation method, he couldn't fully harness it. The system reminded him that his cultivation path was tied to a special task about immortal body techniques within the next week. He wondered if the mention of a Tao partner meant he had to marry immediately to complete the mission. The system instantly issued a new mission. Within 24 hours, he must form a Tao partner bond with a female player, with witnesses to make it valid. Ye Shen furiously crushed his phone, shouting at the system for its absurd tricks. The next morning, he went to Jiangcheng Academy. Bai Yu frowned and pulled him aside, questioning why he wouldn't talk in class. He sternly explained that the class was too crowded, promising to explain everything clearly later and let her ask then. Bai Yu hesitantly asked if Ye Shen planned to continue with those strange words from yesterday. At that moment, Bai Tianyu strode in quickly, eyes greedy, determined to seize the formula to secure his position as family head. In the auction hall, the crowd eagerly bid higher and higher, numbers soaring. But with just one bid from Bai Tianyu, silence fell. He offered 1 billion. The audience was shocked, amazed at someone throwing money like paper, guessing he must be from a super-wealthy clan. He leaned back confidently in his chair, smirking as he waited for the gavel to fall. In a corner, Bai Yu smiled faintly, certain he would appear. However, inside she worried whether his reckless spending of Bai family assets was acceptable. Even though his private wealth was separate from the family fortune, the issue was still serious. Hearing this, Ye Shen understood immediately, a faint smile curling his lips. He joined the bidding, raising the price to 1.01 billion. Bai Tianyu instantly scowled, cursing angrily, thinking Bai Yu was obstructing him. He shouted 1.05 billion, challenging Bai Yu, claiming she didn't dare use Bai family assets to fight him. She turned to Ye Shen in surprise, but he calmly replied that if the man had money, let him keep spending. This move, though somewhat crafty, was still reasonable. The auctioneer was sweating, nervous over the enormous figures. He called 1.05 billion 3 times, but Bai Tianyu exploded in rage, cursing and refusing to stop. In the end, he roared and raised the bid to 2 billion. The whole hall erupted, the audience stunned, thinking he had gone mad, as no one believed the formula was worth that much. Ye Shen heard this and smiled, deciding to withdraw as he didn't want to overdo it. The 2 billion bid was confirmed once, then twice. On the third call, Bai Tianyu won at 2 billion. After the auction, he didn't forget to provoke Ye Shen. He arrogantly pointed his finger, signaling that Ye Shen should swallow the humiliation. Ye Shen awkwardly looked at Bai Yu, wondering if all her followers were like that. But she calmly said this was just a rare case. At that moment, Ye Shen's phone suddenly rang. A message showed the money had arrived, shocking him at the speed, while Bai Yu smiled, saying this platform always worked that way, and reminding him that's why she had brought him here in such haste. The system chimed, congratulating Ye Shen on completing a special mission, granting 10 million plus a random item. Progress 4-7. The money converted into star wisdom points straight into his pocket, while also triggering a new 24-hour challenge to obtain a cultivation method. Ye Shen whispered, "A cultivation technique. How could he possibly find one in this society?" He considered that if desperate, maybe buying an ordinary scripture book on the street could count as a workaround. At that exact moment, the host introduced a new treasure, an authenticated ancient book, absolutely genuine, rumored to contain the secret of the golden flower, with mastery ensuring continuous victories, starting price 8 million, each raised by 100,000. Ye Shen immediately sensed immense potential, his eyes lighting up at recognizing it as a rare treasure. He turned to ask Bai Yu about its true value, but she casually answered with something vague. He admitted he couldn't be certain. It might be useless, but it could also be extremely precious. Seeing Ye Shen so eager, Bai Yu smiled gently, declaring she would buy it for him and wouldn't allow refusal. She then boldly called out a bid of 50 million. The auctioneer instantly announced bidder number 11 had offered 50 million and asked if anyone wanted to go higher. Ye Shen looked at Bai Yu in confusion, not understanding why she acted that way. She confidently explained that the book's value was around 50 to 60 million, at most 80 million, so bidding high early would intimidate rivals and warn off challengers. Ye Shen ignored her words, only glancing at Bai Tianyu, who was cursing madly. He chuckled lightly, praising Bai Yu for being truly sharp and capable. The host congratulated bidder number 11 for successfully winning the Golden Flower Manual. Staff carefully brought out the martial arts book, inviting the winner to sign. Without hesitation, Bai Yu handed the book straight to Ye Shun, telling him to see if it held real value. Ye Shun instinctively reached out and took it, but Ye Shun's expression suddenly changed strangely. A mysterious vision appeared in his mind, showing an old man practicing martial arts. The elder's bearing was like that of a renowned sword master. Ye Shun unexpectedly fell into an illusory realm, looking around carefully. He even slapped himself hard to test, and the clear pain proved it was no illusion. A deep male voice sounded, praising the handsome youth while wondering why he was hurting himself. Ye Shun spun around in panic, loudly demanding who was there. But as soon as he saw the person behind, his attitude instantly shifted. He bowed respectfully, introducing himself as Ye Shen, admitting he didn't know this was the elder's domain, and begged forgiveness for intruding. The old man smiled kindly, saying he could be called La Yan, revealing no one had visited for a long time, then asking how the youth entered. Hearing the name La Yan, Ye Shen was shaken. His eyes filled with shock. Wasn't this the legendary sword immortal patriarch? His robes and aura matched exactly. He hurriedly explained that he had accidentally obtained the Golden Flower secret scroll, and upon touching it, he was drawn here. La Yan pondered, his gaze penetrating, asking if the youth was also a cultivator, and thus able to reach this place through the secret manual. Then he shook his head, questioning how in this era, when cultivators were nearly extinct, someone so young could form spiritual energy and reach such a realm. Ye Shun did not hide it, explaining this was a reality game. The world's spiritual energy had revived, hence the difference, though he wasn't sure if the words made sense. After some conversation, the two gradually grew at ease, the atmosphere naturally harmonious. La Yan nodded, realizing the heavenly Tao had revealed itself. The age of spiritual energy recovery had begun, making it easier for the youth to step onto this path. Ye Shen modestly said he didn't dare disturb and prepared to leave. La Yan waved gently, speaking warmly, telling him to wait. He asked if Ye Shen knew a way to leave this place yet. Hearing this, Ye Shen suddenly realized he had never thought of an exit, and awkwardly shook his head. La Yan smiled and continued, saying he could help him leave, but wanted the youth to fulfill a wish. Ye Shen respectfully promised to do his utmost to carry out the request. La Yan nodded in satisfaction, saying that in the past he had accidentally preserved his soul, and now seeing the Tao flourish again, he could depart without regret. After a while, Ye Shen slowly regained consciousness, his mind dizzy and hazy. Bai Yu stood beside him full of worry, quickly asking about his condition. She explained this was the auction restroom, and he had suddenly fainted. If he hadn't seemed only asleep, she would have called for an ambulance. Ye Shen jolted up, his eyes flashing strangely. He excitedly told Bai Yu that he had just met the ancestor. Bai Yu was surprised, frowned suspiciously, and asked if it was a dream. Ye Shen admitted it could be considered similar to a dreamscape. At that moment, the system announced a reward, the secret cultivation method, Golden Flower. It also granted 10 million experience points and a random item. The mission progress had now reached 5-7. Reading the flood of messages, Ye Shen felt like his head was about to explode. He cursed inwardly, complaining the barrage of messages was enough to kill someone. Seeing her friend panicked, Bai Yu rushed to call a doctor. Ye Shen quickly held her hand, reassuring her not to worry. He insisted he was fine, likely just low blood pressure from lying too long, and a short rest would fix it. Bai Yu doubted him, asking if he was sure and warning not to trick her. Ye Shen patted her head, smiling gently, assuring he was truly fine, saying near death didn't feel like this. She glared at him, scolding as if he had experienced death, yet still didn't know how to take care of himself. Inwardly, Ye Shen muttered that anyone would be dizzy after such a barrage, but the secret mission also felt strangely familiar. He opened the status interface to check. Instantly, a strange red coordinate marker appeared on the map. Startled, Ye-shun stood up abruptly and left without a word. While leaving, he only managed to say it was urgent, leaving Bai Yu calling after him for an explanation. She grew angry, muttering that he truly drove people crazy with curiosity. Ye-shun sped away on his vehicle like an arrow. At blazing speed like the wind, he guessed the hidden mission was a continuation of the previous trial. He recalled past memories. 5 years ago, in a time dungeon, around a round table, mysterious high-ranking figures gathered. At that time, the Ju-Uma tribe invaded with overwhelming force, requiring an alliance with the Central Kingdom to resist. The situation dire. An elder turned to Ye-shun, reminding him he was human, and entrusted him the role of envoy for the alliance. Ye-shun agreed immediately, boldly accepting the command from the palace lord. The palace lord nodded, declared adjournment, and ordered everyone to prepare for Liu Zhenjun's descent in 7 days. After the meeting ended, everyone left. But suddenly, a voice called him back. That voice requested Ye-shun to stay behind for a while. The palace lord awkwardly followed, hesitantly asking to speak with him privately. With a solemn face, the palace lord said the decisive battle was near and she should not burden him. But there was something only Ye-shun could do. Ye-shun respectfully replied, asking for instructions. She took out a letter and gravely explained that 3 years ago the Holy Palace's chief disciple was expelled for breaking a forbidden law, and though she promised to personally invite him back, now the urgent war left her unable to leave. The letter was handed over. Ye-shun nodded, promising to bring that person back within 2 days before the battle. The palace lord sighed in relief, saying the name was. Back to the present, Ye-shun sped at 80 km/h, anxious knowing the chief disciple was Feng Wu, a level 76 spellmaster, whose return would be a crucial alliance. A short while later, he stopped the vehicle, confirming he was near the target location. But recalling the game world had merged with reality, he realized opening a dungeon manually required a special method. Ye-shun muttered while pondering. He tried channeling energy into his palm, drawing curious stares around him. People pulled out phones to record, mocking him as a lunatic or drug addict, then quickly posted it online for laughs. Hearing the gossip, Ye-shun grew angry, but his mind stayed urgent. He changed tactics, instantly putting on an invisibility cloak to avoid prying eyes. With cold eyes, he channeled power to unleash a martial technique, and a swirl of green life energy erupted fiercely. In an instant, it formed into a space gate leading into the dungeon. Clutching the letter, Ye-shun recalled that in his past life, the opponent destroyed everyone with a single strike, and recklessly rushing in would mean certain death. Even so, he clenched his teeth with determination. Without hesitation, he stepped straight through the gate, risking everything for survival. Within seconds, the scenery shifted completely into a mysterious realm. The waters there sparkled, clearer than the real world. Suddenly, a cold voice echoed, scolding the intruder. None other than Feng Wu, the level 76 celestial spellmaster, just as he remembered. Ye-shun grew wary, knowing he hadn't yet activated his power. He needed to strike first before she attacked, or he'd die. He moved cautiously, probing while preparing. Soon Feng Wu appeared with overwhelming pressure, declaring this place a sacred rest that mortals must not trespass. With a fiery temper, she ignored any explanation and immediately launched an attack. Her spear thrust directly at Ye-shun, the killing intent terrifying him into shouting to stop. With the spear almost upon him, leaving no room to dodge, Ye-shun cursed inwardly, yet at that very moment of peril. He raised the letter high, loudly declaring himself envoy of the heavenly holy palace. Bearing Lak Ching-han's command, the spearhead froze inches from his eye in a miraculous instant. Feng Wu frowned and questioned why someone of the holy palace had such weak strength. Scene shifted to Bai Yu, who gritted her teeth bitterly, vowing not to spare Ye-shun if given the chance. A mocking voice sounded behind. teasing that Miss Bai surely hadn't expected to lose to this young master. Bai Tianyu appeared, sneering, saying if she knelt to beg, he'd be willing to share the credit. Bai Yu coldly sneered in disdain, then turned and left. Bai Tianyu angrily shouted after her, warning that the day of victory and defeat was still far ahead. In the dungeon space, Ye Shun spoke with Feng Wu, smiling to ease the tension, stressing that his strength wasn't worth her going all out. Feng Wu found sense in his words, withdrew her spear, softened her tone, reminding that the palace lord said even a small lion fights fully, but the letter proved he bore no ill will. The two stared at each other in silence. Ye Shun broke the silence, asking why she kept gazing at him. Suddenly, Feng Wu knelt in salute, addressing herself as the 36th disciple of the heavenly holy palace, greeting Elder Ye Shen. Ye Shen was shocked, asking how she knew his true identity. Feng Wu confirmed the letter bore the palace lord's handwriting without doubt, also instructing her to obey the elder once the ban was lifted. Ye Shen nodded, ordering her to open the dungeon exit so they could leave and continue discussions. But Feng Wu shook her head helplessly, saying she could not. She explained that since last week this place had lost control, the exit sealed. She tried breaking it but failed, and wondered how Ye Shen had entered. Ye Shen was stunned, remembering only 2 days remained. Dungeon lockouts were normal, likely only reopening once the world and game fully merged. But then Bai Yu would think he had vanished. At that moment, the system announced congratulations to Ye Shun for completing the hidden mission delayed letter, granting 10 million experience and a random item, with progress reaching 7-7. Checking, out he saw all missions completed, and backpack capacity increased to 10 cubic meters. All stored props and items would auto-transfer to the backpack once the official version launched. The system reminded him to check. He thought to himself that apart from the special cloak, the rest must wait for the official release. So was that cloak part of the system's closet? Noticing him dazed, Feng Wu asked if the elder had any plan. Ye Shun firmly replied that the entrance would only open in 2 days, leaving no other choice. She widened her eyes in surprise, asking if he even knew divination, but he only smiled, saying he understood a little. Inwardly he lamented, hoping to escape soon so Bai Yu wouldn't have to wait. The scene shifted to April 18, 2023, the start of the game's official version. Ye Shen's phone rang but only showed no connection. She grew tense, clutching the device tightly. She shouted angrily, demanding where he had disappeared for 2 whole days. Even calls went unanswered. At that time in the tower, Bai Yu furiously scolded Ye Shen. First he vanished, then stood her up, and now he even dared to skip the conference today. The phone rang again. A servant reminded her that it was time, young miss. Bai Yu left resentfully, keeping a grudge against Ye Shun in her heart. On the bustling streets, a man lifted his head toward the sky. He cried out in horror. A meteor shower appeared overhead. He clasped his hands in prayer, begging for protection from beastly disasters. Suddenly, a figure descended. Behind him trailed ferocious, aberrant beasts charging at the crowd, screams filling the air. At this moment, Ye Shun had just exited the dungeon. Realizing the disaster, he knew the long-awaited crisis had finally arrived. A beam of light shot into him, and the system announced receipt of official version starter rewards, items sent to storage. The system also notified of reaching level 30, with specialization available after class change. The luminous energy fused within, sharpening his eyes and strengthening his body. At level 30, though not yet strong, he was sufficient to endure the early stage. He turned to Feng Wu, saying the exit was open, and they must hurry to save people. She still didn't understand, asking where to go. Ye Shun firmly answered, to save lives. Outside, a victim was being torn apart savagely by a beast. The crowd panicked and scattered in chaos. Various aberrant beasts appeared, ones only seen in the game. They roared, as if wanting to devour everything. Ye Shen and Feng Wu stood above, watching the horrifying scene. He frowned, wondering why the number of monsters was unusually high. Feng Wu replied this was only a small portion, insignificant compared to the whole. Looking at the map, Ye Shen noticed an unusual location. Suspecting someone had gone there, the beasts, drawn by the noise, immediately turned toward Ye Shen. They charged fiercely, giving him no time to hesitate. He raised his hand to cast a secret art, shouting the death order. His fingers closed as if crushing the space itself. The monsters shattered instantly, reduced to flesh and blood mist. After finishing them, he spotted a motorcycle by the roadside, feeling his luck was decent. He jumped onto the bike and told Feng Wu to ride with him. She was astonished, asking why not use flight magic since it would be more convenient. Ye Shen shook his head, explaining that would be too conspicuous. This world differed from hers, and to survive long-term, he must conceal strength, strictly forbidding her from using power recklessly. Feng Wu answered solemnly, fully obeying the command. Amid the chaotic crowd, Ye Shen's sister frantically searched, angry at not knowing where the monsters had come from. She grew even more furious that her younger brother had vanished in such a critical moment. Not far away, two little sisters were surrounded by wolves, trembling in fear of being torn apart. The elder tried to calm the younger, urging her not to panic. Suddenly, a white wolf lunged straight at them, its sharp claws aimed to tear the small bodies apart. At the very brink of danger, an explosive sound rang out, blasting the wolf's body apart. The two sisters stood dumbfounded, hearing the voice of their savior. They cried out in gratitude, astonished by his power. That person was Diep Zikao. He was a level 10 battle master, wielding the skill, sky-splitting, never affiliated with any organization. His gaze swept over the two sisters. He calmly replied it was merely a casual action. Then he asked if they had seen a foolish-looking youth, often drawing attention, about hand level in height. The younger sister teased that even their grandfather couldn't guess. The elder seriously said she didn't know, only that many people were hiding in the Suda store, suggesting he search there. She said she would stop by, then asked if they wanted to come along. Deep Sikao declined, saying he had contacted acquaintances to pick them up. He departed, leaving the sisters awaiting rescue. The elder muttered softly, feeling that his power held secrets within this catastrophe. At that moment, in the Suda store, Ye Shen's sister pushed open the door and smelled death, corpses scattered everywhere, the gruesome sight shocking her. She exclaimed in horror, questioning what had happened here. Panicked, she called out her brother's name. Hoping for a response, suddenly a weak cry for help sounded from behind. A young girl appeared, seeming to have been saved. But right behind her, strange tentacles lunged forth, the victim screaming in despair. The situation hung by a thread. Deep Zichao suddenly rushed in to rescue, but another tentacle bound him tightly. The monster raised its cruel claws, preparing a fatal strike. She shouted loudly, daring it to dream of devouring her. Even while strangled by tentacles, Diep Zichao remained calm, restraining it. With each blow, he gradually slew the aberrant beasts. But he knew clearly that without finding a way out, survival was slim. At the brink of danger, Feng Wu stormed in like a whirlwind. Her spear danced sharply, tearing apart the monsters in an instant. Thanks to her, Diep Zikao escaped death in a flash, filled with admiration. He inwardly admitted this girl's strength far exceeded imagination. The entire city was now left in ruins and desolation. Beasts rampaged, humans exhausted, with no power left to resist. At that moment, Ye Shen appeared in full force, riding a motorcycle soaring through the air, exuding extraordinary majesty. He felt reassured with Feng Wu's protection, yet worried Bai Yu was in the central zone near the demon lair. Memories of his past life returned. He recalled Bai Yu being trapped there, giving Bai Tianyu the chance to rebel, costing many subordinates their lives. When she returned to the Bai family, it was already too late. Even after her awakening, she could not reverse the situation. He gritted his teeth and twisted the throttle fully. The bike roared ahead, breaking past 1,000 km/h, leaving the pursuing beasts far behind. On the bustling boulevards, the strange beasts wandered freely like the true masters of the place. In a dark corner, a group trembled in hiding. The blond man cursed angrily, crying out for rescue that never came. Boss Gao reassured them, warning that Jiang Cheng was descending into chaos, the government unreliable. Only by crossing the commercial zone and entering the tunnels could they survive, since the monsters hadn't gone underground. At that moment, Bai Yu panted after the intense battle, standing firm among the group. Someone flattered her, saying their lives depended entirely on her, begging her to push harder, since only she could activate the special energy. Another quickly agreed, promising great repayment to the Bai family after the calamity. A red-haired man smiled obsequiously, speaking smoothly. He too promised not to forget this kindness if they survived the catastrophe. But a sly gleam in his eyes made everyone wary. Bai Yu coldly told them to stop with the courtesies and move quickly. She decisively took the lead, without hesitation. But the footsteps of the group had already drawn the attention of a pack of bloodthirsty wolves. The wolves howled, charging like mad beasts. Bai Yu immediately stepped forward, unleashing counterattack skills to protect the group. Bai Yu cast the ultimate technique, Ice Arrow, summoning arrows of frost from the void. They pierced through the wolves, rendering the enemies powerless at once. The system sent out a notification signal. It recorded that Bai Yu chose the Ice Mage profession, with skills Ice Arrow and Ice Wall, level 35, not affiliated with any faction. But after the fierce fight, her mana was nearly drained, leaving her able to force out only a few more moves before collapse. Even exhausted, she shouted loudly, urging everyone to hurry, ignoring the worried protests of subordinates. She snapped back that stopping meant certain death, only advancing held hope of survival. Suddenly, a girl in the group cried out, spotting a strange object ahead. A giant panda, a high-level spirit beast, stood blocking the way. The group panicked, shouting in confusion at what it was. Bai Yu quickly gestured, demanding silence and for them to detour quietly. The group crept cautiously, temporarily avoiding its notice. But unfortunately, someone accidentally stumbled against the beast's leg. A loud scream erupted, shattering the silence. At that moment, Ye Shen arrived just in time. He braked sharply, dust and smoke rising thickly. He frowned, immediately recognizing the giant panda ahead. In his memory, this species had been a nightmare that slaughtered new players in the beta test, ranked as elite. Fearing Bai Yu was in danger, he quickly thought of a way to escape the situation. Just then, an old man in the group suddenly shouted loudly. He furiously scolded the one who caused the disaster. A panicked young man pinned the old man down, cursing him to shut up before dragging the whole group into danger. But it was too late. The giant beast opened its eyes, leaving everyone frozen in terror. They screamed in fear, urging each other to run. Several women fled in panic, leaving only Sima and Gao Jia rooted to the spot. The enraged beast, eyes blood-red, roared thunderously and swung its claws down at the two. Some in the group wept, believing death was inevitable, despairing that no one would save them. But Sima remained calm, with a cold gaze, declaring he would not die. He instantly unleashed dark power, a purple hand appearing to seize Gao Jia, coldly forcing him to act as bait to stall the beast. Sima shoved Gao Jia forward as bait, ignoring his screams, while his eyes locked intently on the girl beside him. She was shaken, realizing the true self he had long concealed. He cut her off, admitting he too was awakened, hiding his power while waiting for the right moment, but now only his strength could be relied on. The girl's eyes sharpened, proposing a deal. If he let her out, she would accept any condition. She affirmed she wasn't afraid of owing a debt, then asked Sima how he planned to handle Bai Yu. He suggested that although Bai Yu was awakened, she was exhausted, and cooperating with him would benefit both sides. Bai Yu refused, stating their paths were different and forcing it would only bring danger. He sneered, wishing her safety on her journey, his tone dripping with hidden intent. Bai Yu, fully aware of Sima's treacherous mind, chose to split. The two groups quietly parted ways. Her assistant hesitantly asked why she didn't join for greater safety. She replied coldly that being with him would only make her a disposable sacrifice in a crisis. But inside, she worried about Ye Shen, unable to reach him by phone. As she drifted in thought, her expression suddenly changed. She swiftly raised a barrier with her ice wall skill. A radiant wall of ice instantly rose in front. It absorbed the full brunt of the giant beast's fierce strike. The group briefly despaired, thinking it was the end. But just then, the beast was struck from behind by a surprise attack. Dust billowed as Bai Yu, drained of strength, collapsed into her assistant's arms. She asked coldly who had intervened to save them. From atop the beast's back, the familiar figure of Ye Shen appeared. They thought everything was decided, but new turmoil rose again. The battle was far from over. Suddenly, a massive wild boar charged out, blocking the giant panda. Next, a herd of fiery boars stormed forward, flames blazing. Ye Shen frowned. Trouble kept piling up. He knew he needed a swift, decisive battle, for dragging it out meant certain death. Without hesitation, he drew from his pack a blue-grade holy sword, possessing weak point strike for high criticals, but also provoking enemies to focus attacks on him. One fire boar halted and launched a flame cyclone at him. Ye Shen leapt high to evade, his figure flashing through the air. With a decisive strike, he finished it, the system announcing the reward, a slab of fire boar meat obtained. Seizing the advantage, he slashed coldly, sweeping away the minions. Victory notifications rang non-stop, enemy corpses piling up. He rampaged like a god of war. Within minutes, the entire herd of fire beasts was annihilated. He gently reached out to Bai Yu, urging her to leave quickly. A purple flash shot forth like lightning. It struck so fast the beast could only scream. A wretched roar echoed in despair. In a ruined house, Ye Shen sighed in relief, blaming himself for being late and excusing it as unexpected. Bai Yu collapsed into his arms, scolding him for making her worry. He inwardly blamed dungeon interference, outwardly only soothing her that her safety was enough. The assistant nervously asked about the identity of the guest. Bai Yu introduced him as her boyfriend, while the other was her close secretary, Tu Qinghua. Tu Qinghua quickly declined, insisting she was just a servant, asking to be addressed simply. Ye Shen felt awkward at this. Bai Yu solemnly explained that Bai Tianyu had forcibly seized power and spread news of her death to crush opposition. Ye Shen was shocked, believing no one in the clan would support him. Ye Shen calmed himself, noting that in chaotic times, Bai Tianyu seized the moment, making it easy to control the situation. However, he advised not to fear, since Tianyu couldn't dominate the clan instantly. As long as Bai Yu returned, all schemes would crumble. Inwardly, he swore to make the rival suffer disastrous consequences. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. In a high-rise building, Bai Tianyu questioned his father about the accuracy of the news. He suspected Bai Yu had perished outside. The father affirmed it was almost certain, saying only young Master Sima returned, while others likely didn't survive. He remarked it was almost too convenient, and his father sternly declared it was time to overthrow the clan's elder. However, the influence of Clan Lord Guan within the family remained a major obstacle. Tian Yu, confident, told his father to watch closely. He raised his hand, summoning a sinister magic circle to call forth a creature from hell. A ferocious wolf materialized from the formation. Its chilling roar spread oppressive might everywhere. The father was astonished, calling it a rare miracle. Tianyu, triumphant, declared that times had changed. Old rules could be discarded, and any who opposed would be eradicated. His father objected, advising him to think differently, that true leadership required strategy rather than brute force. Tianyu frowned, asking for a clear explanation since he didn't understand. The father patiently instructed in a gentle tone, stressing that ruling a great clan required winning hearts, not relying solely on slaughter. He suggested hosting a tea banquet to gather the elders, then staging an incident for Tianyu to heroically save them, thus earning trust. Tianyu was delighted, praising his father's cunning, vowing to raise the clan to its peak. In a secret chamber, a mysterious figure appeared. While a subordinate timidly entered to greet his master, he immediately inquired about Bai Yu's whereabouts. The servant reported no contact. Only a few of the Sima heirs were safe, while the young lady and 2 other houses' heirs remained missing. The clan head turned, his gaze icy, fixing on the Sima family. He ordered reinforcements, declaring they must find her alive or her corpse at all costs. Suddenly, a phone rang, shattering the tense atmosphere. A voice answered. "This is the Bai residence." "Who is calling?" Scene shifted to Jiangcheng, where Bai Yu and her companions walked cautiously, while Qinghua worried about safety. Ye Shen calmly explained that most were weak monsters, and as long as they avoided attention, there was no danger. Bai Yu still fretted, fearing turmoil within the Bai clan. She scolded about cutting communications, but Ye Shen sternly said that alerting too soon would only raise suspicion and ruin the plan. Bai Yu suddenly realized he was setting a trap. He emphasized gathering evidence first, then striking a decisive blow, warning that impatience would backfire. Bai Yu nodded, though sensing Ye Shen also bore personal vengeance against Tianyu. Suddenly, Qinghua panicked and pointed out danger. Bai Yu turned, stunned. A squad of heavily armed soldiers blocked the road. Ye Shen sighed in annoyance, lamenting he had forgotten these were also involved. He reassured them that they were merely pseudo-monsters that looted, not real humans. Bai Yu anxiously asked whether to fight or evade. He shook his head, saying each was dangerous and combat would drag out. He told the group to stay put while he stepped forward to negotiate. Walking ahead, he raised his hand peacefully, proposing talk instead of bloodshed. But the thugs ignored reason, immediately firing arrows to attack. Ye Shen dodged swiftly like the wind. He drew the holy sword, its cold light flashing. His movement technique flickered like lightning. His combat skills reached the peak of mastery. The minions fell one by one. Suddenly, an attacker struck from behind. Ye Shen sensed it in time. He spun around, delivering a storm-like punch. The blow landed on the foe's stomach, making him spew blood and collapse. Bai Yu and Qinghua were stunned, frozen by the sight. Qinghua softly repeated the lady's words about winning people with virtue, leaving Bai Yu speechless. In moments, the entire band of raiders was defeated and lay sprawled out. Ye Shen grabbed one by the collar and lifted him up. The rest panicked, shouting at their leader, fearing for their lives. They hastily urged each other to flee. All turned to run at once. Ye Shen spoke coldly, challenging their attempt to escape. He turned and asked Bai Yu for support. She immediately understood. Channeling energy into her hand, a barrage of ice arrows rained down to block their path, forcing the leader into desperate pleas. He made false excuses, begging for mercy, but Ye Shen remained indifferent. He questioned the enemy's true intentions. Realizing negotiations failed, the leader feigned aggression. But he instantly dropped to his knees, begging for his life, lamenting being killed hundreds of times daily and fearing true death meant no return. Ye Shen was surprised, asking if these monsters also knew they were inside a game. They affirmed they were from Lanxing, not another world. The revelation made him ponder that if true, the star system far surpassed the concept of a mere game. But he dismissed it, deciding overthinking was pointless now, though they still had some use. He chose to spare them, planning to assign tasks. He ordered them to act as informants, and the leader gladly pledged loyalty. After that, Ye Shen waved his hand. He commanded the underlings to retreat, keeping only the leader. He and that one approached Bai Yu, who looked doubtful and questioned the situation. He smiled. explaining he was simply using them as tools for gathering intelligence to aid planning. He suggested the group find a place to rest and recover strength. Bai Yu quietly observed his calm demeanor as the group moved on. A while later, Qinghua returned home, vowing to maintain order until the clan turmoil was resolved. While Bai Yu felt relieved they had not been wiped out, now was the time to consolidate their gains. All would become the foundation for survival in the apocalypse. Suddenly, Ye Shun drew out a radiant crystal, a super divine enhancement stone that boosted equipment with special effects. He murmured that the mission rewards were indeed generous, listing the item ranks from lowest to highest in the star system. He proceeded to open the next reward. A set of armor and accessories appeared. It was the Nightshade outfit, super divine grade, complete set granting defense, regeneration, plus skills to conceal identity and aura, nullifying all tracking. He realized this was a god-tier artifact of extremely rare quality, super divine grade. It was time to unleash its full power, he muttered, hoping not to face misfortune. The system displayed a choice. Confirm using the enhancement crystal on the outfit. Failure would destroy it completely. He fell silent, weighing the decision. Then, decisively, he pressed confirm, boldly wagering everything. The room flared with blinding light. The system announced a successful enhancement. The equipment rose to legendary grade, unlocking the passive skill Chengge Mo Ren, allowing instant skill casting. The new active skills included manipulating darkness to hide, control attacks, and create a clone equal to the body within a 1 kilometer radius, cooldown 24 hours. He was shaken, as every legendary appearance shocked the world, usually only dropping when the populace reached level 60. Ye Shen continued checking the spoils. He picked up 2 scrolls that had appeared. One was a hidden profession scroll, epic grade, bound to the user. The other was a hidden skill scroll, also epic grade, linked to his current class. He was astonished, never having heard of hidden professions or skills, guessing this might be a privilege unique to him. Outside, a subordinate reported that the brothers were eager and awaiting orders. He clenched the 2 scrolls, deciding to store them and only test after dealing with Bai Tianyu. He asked about the situation outside, and the subordinate reported that the Bai family estate was full of monsters, only safe to watch from afar. Ye Shun was surprised and pressed for current details. The reply was that many had entered, but none were seen coming back out. He immediately ordered strict restraint, only observing and awaiting commands. Hearing this, Bai Yu came over to ask. He confirmed Bai Tianyu had begun moving and told them to prepare to depart. The scene shifted to the Bai family mansion. The family head asked for updates, and a subordinate reported that the streets were overrun by monsters. With no word from the eldest young lady, Old Bai frowned and asked about the smaller branches. The reply was that they had gathered in the conference hall, but the subordinate hesitated until pressed. The man reported the branch families showed unpredictable movements, and the elder sternly ordered them not to act rashly. Soon, all Bai family elites assembled in the conference hall. One discontented member asked why Tianyu summoned them in such chaos. Tianyu calmly said to wait until the family head arrived, which would be soon. Another nodded, saying they wanted to see what trick he would pull. Suddenly, a subordinate opened the door to announce the family head's arrival. Old Bai slowly took his seat. Bai Tianyu's father stood up sharply, urging his brother not to drown in grief over Bai Yu. Old Bai coldly voiced suspicion about the news of his grandchild's death and the purpose of this meeting. The younger brother, helpless, turned straight to the main issue, speaking harshly. He called for choosing a young successor since the family head was weakened, using Bai Yu's possible death as justification. The second elder objected, accusing him of trying to seize power during chaos. A member grew angry and threatened to expel anyone who spoke recklessly. The atmosphere turned chaotic as everyone argued fiercely. Old Bai shouted loudly, forcing everyone to be silent and sit down. He reminded them of the rule. Any resolution required 2/3 support to be valid. Bai Tianyu looked at his father with full confidence. Catching the signal, he stood before everyone. The second elder nominated his son, Bai Tianyu, as acting family head. Suddenly an explosion sounded, reporting that monsters had broken in with overwhelming numbers. The crowd panicked upon learning hundreds of beasts had them surrounded. Many collapsed in fear, their spirits broken. A feeling of despair spread, believing there was no way out. Meanwhile, Yeshen's group rushed toward the Bai family, receiving grim news. Some sighed, thinking it was too late and the Bai family could not survive. Upon hearing this, Yeshen's face turned cold, smashing a nearby car window. He gave a firm order, calling everyone onto the vehicles, stressing that Bai Tianyu had already acted. Back in the meeting hall, someone asked how the government had responded. Another replied that all communication had been cut off since morning, with repeated attempts failing. A panicked person suggested moving everyone into the bunker to wait for the monsters to leave. Old Bai sorrowfully agreed, seeing no other option. Tianyu secretly sneered, thinking they had no chance of escape. Suddenly, several white wolves smashed through the doors. They roared ferociously at the crowd. The people in the hall panicked and collapsed, with only a few near the door daring to flee. Someone urged the family head to escape immediately. One person lamented that the Bai family's fate was finished. A supporter of Tianyu was seized by a wolf. He desperately reached out, begging for help, but Tianyu only sneered coldly, forbidding him to touch him. Without mercy, Tianyu crushed his arm underfoot. The wolves tore his head apart, and Tianyu sneered, declaring the play was over and the real show was beginning. The crowd panicked as the bunker door remained shut, screaming about being trapped. Tianyu stepped forward, pretending righteousness, saying they should enter the bunker while he stayed outside. Some were moved and called him a good grandson. The second elder shouted for his son to retreat, saying he could not withstand the monsters. Tianyu acted selflessly, insisting on taking responsibility to protect the family. The bunker door opened, and the crowd hurried inside, praising his good intentions. Old Bai urged that survival was better than holding ground. He confirmed that everyone should head into the bunker. With the trap working, Tianyu rejoiced inwardly, planning to perform further to seize the family head's seat. Suddenly, an ice arrow shot in from afar. The wolves howled as waves of furious attacks struck them. Tianyu was stunned. Bai Yu appeared, her eyes icy cold. Tianyu was shocked to see she was still alive. Bai Yu retorted, mocking his surprise. He gnashed his teeth, saying he hated surprises the most. The wolves tried to strike, but a golden light stopped them. Bai Yu counterattacked, raising an ice wall and striking fiercely at the gray wolves. Tianyu was shocked to learn she was also an awakened, so he summoned more wolves. She smiled disdainfully, saying she had never considered him anything. An ice arrow shot forward. Tianyu barely dodged. He laughed arrogantly, mocking the attack's speed. Bai Yu coldly said the arrow's target was never him. Old Bai recklessly rushed out after hearing his daughter's voice. He cried out emotionally, confirming she was alive. Both relieved and worried, he urged her to stay away from the beasts. Bai Yu unleashed a volley of ice arrows. The wolves were pierced and collapsed. Tianyu was overwhelmed, stunned by her power. She sneered, asking if he now saw her dominance. Old Bai was horrified to realize two monsters were protecting him. Bai Yu exposed him, revealing they were all controlled by Tianyu. She questioned the second elder, leaving him speechless as the plan collapsed. He admitted defeat, but he growled, threatening to drag others down with him. He begged for mercy, likening himself to a fish in a torn net. Bai Yu sneered, pretending to let him go. Tianyu grinned triumphantly. He mounted a wolf and fled. As he left, he shouted a vow of revenge. Old Bai feared the consequences of not restraining him. Bai Yu remained calm, confident he could not escape. On the street, Tianyu ran at full speed. He cursed his misfortune, lamenting his humiliating fate. A strange voice mocked him from behind. The wolves froze, wary. Tianyu roared, daring the hidden figure to show. A golden light suddenly flashed. Smoke and dust rose, obscuring vision. Ye Shen's group appeared. Tianyu recognized him as Akia's close follower. Ye Shen coldly declared he was pursuing alone, with no trap. Relieved, Tianyu calmed slightly. He ordered the Hell Wolves to attack. Ye Shen stayed composed, gathering his strength. His golden hand crushed the ferocious wolf. Tianyu collapsed, trembling in terror. He demanded answers but was told the dying need not know. He lowered his voice, begging for his life and offering wealth. Ye Shen sneered, saying he lacked nothing. He told Tianyu to try bargaining with the monsters instead. At once, thousands of demons surged forth. Ye Shen grabbed him, then hurled him straight into the horde, ignoring his pleas as the eldest son. He rolled on the ground, screaming threats in despair, but only savage beasts surrounded him. With a final scream, Tianyu was torn to ashes, ending his Bai family plot. Ye Shen thought it was time to focus on the next wave. The scene shifted to a military base where soldiers fired heavy weapons at the demons. Arguments broke out between the captain and troops, fearing the defense line would collapse. From the smoke and fire, a familiar face appeared. The system announced a notification. Ye Zituo killed an F-rank demon, unleashing sword ki like rain that pierced the monsters. Her immortal spellblade skill advanced to the beginner stage. She performed the ultimate move, Shadow Split Sword. Soldiers were astonished, believing such power beyond human limits. Some discussed the need to gather superpowers before they lost control, but they worried that Awakened would not easily cooperate. One voice firmly said, if they could not be used, they should be eliminated. Bai Yu arrived, her father rejoicing that she returned in time and avoided being deceived. Old Bai lamented his frailty, wishing his daughter to inherit the family. She refused, saying she was not ready and would leave for a while. He was shocked, asking why she would go amid such chaos. She only smiled, saying someone was waiting. Ye Shen ended the battle and sighed in relief. He believed the area was now safe and Bai Yu was less at risk. His followers ran up calling out to him. They wished to follow him, begging to be accepted as subordinates. Ye Shen looked coldly, asking if they truly wanted to follow him. He demanded they reach level 20 first, refusing to raise the useless, then sped away on his flaming bike. The rest discussed, realizing their only option was to hunt monsters, level up, and survive. One hesitated, reminding them they were originally monsters. But all shouted in unison that from now on they were humans, treating other monsters as experience points. Ye Shen sped through the desolate city. Suddenly, an armored snow panda leapt from above in ambush. A thunderous explosion rang out. The Z-1000 was destroyed, but Ye Shen escaped in time. He faced a fierce, fire-armored bear. He cursed his bad luck, saying a small provocation led to relentless pursuit. It roared, its entire body blazing. Ye Shen wielded his golden sword, probing for weaknesses while mocking it. Realizing he could neither fight nor flee easily, he decided to withdraw. He used sword flight to escape. He landed on a deserted street. Expecting it, he knew he would meet her there. Bai Yu appeared, her face filled with joy. She was amazed he predicted it. She said the Bai family was now stable, and staying was pointless. Better to join him against the storms ahead. He agreed, deciding to meet his sisters before planning the next move. Back home, they saw several people carrying things. A hesitant young man worried that taking supplies might break the law, but his aunt scolded that the world was in chaos and resources mattered most. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor. Ye Shen and Bai Yu stepped out, startling the group. A familiar voice called him Little Shen. They explained that after 2 days of monster swarms, all food was gone. Ye Shen grew angry, accusing them of turning his home into a storage, but they argued they must help each other and would pay later. He thought bitterly that in his past life he had been exposed because of them, and now they repeated the same. He firmly refused, ordering them to put the supplies down or face the consequences. His aunt angrily cursed, saying the supplies were for her to distribute. But seeing his face, she changed tone to flattery, stressing they couldn't survive without him but assured his share was kept. He sneered, mocking them for stealing yet expecting gratitude. She argued back, claiming too many people made returning hard, then scolded him as selfish. Bai Yu tried to intervene, but he stopped her. He calmly proposed another solution. He suggested pooling some supplies and dividing them equally across the building. She instantly brightened, praising him for respecting elders. She pretended to admit fault, asking for forgiveness. He loudly ordered everyone to gather downstairs in 10 minutes. His aunt eagerly urged them to prepare, and he smiled, saying he wouldn't disappoint. The room door closed. Bai Yu grew angry, questioning if he truly meant to share with such ungrateful people. He coldly said he didn't need their gratitude, only that they lived to receive it. Soon the whole block echoed with his call to gather as he prepared his act. Hundreds of residents crowded the courtyard. His aunt shouted his name, urging him not to hide and to bring out the goods. He stood above, assuring there would be enough for all, while she eagerly pressed him to distribute quickly. The warehouse doors slowly opened. He smiled, saying everyone would get a share, but must keep order. But each crate was sealed with talisman charms, hiding another intent. A man cheerfully praised Xiao Shun, saying good people still existed. But as soon as the supplies appeared, the crowd rushed in chaos. They shouted, seizing by strength, whoever was fastest got a share. The loudest shoved ahead, claiming the right to take first. Ye Shun smirked, saying his plan wasn't complicated, only this simple. He emphasized that greed always leads people to death. His aunt hugged a crate, but suddenly noticed something strange inside. A violent explosion erupted as the planted bombs went off. Ye Shun murmured that he had given them a chance to repent, but they chose death. Now only the leveling was interrupted. He and Bai Yu returned home. Inside, the scene was a mess. Bai Yu worried where Feng Wu had taken her sister, since he could hardly protect himself, let alone another. Ye Shun pondered, asking if Sister Zituo was with him. Bai Yu replied uncertain, only guessing Feng Wu stayed home waiting for orders, fearing trouble had occurred. She panicked, thinking Zituo might truly be in danger. Ye Shun tried calling, but the system reported out of range. He gave a bitter smile, admitting modern technology was useless. Bai Yu reassured him, believing her sister lucky, and promised to use the Bai family name to ask officials for help finding her. Ye Shun smiled, revealing Zituo had also awakened and had her own guardian, making her safer than both of them. Bai Yu was surprised. He nodded, confirming backup was arranged but delayed from obstacles. Suddenly, a change occurred. A streak of green light shot forth. A flying sword and a letter appeared in front. He recognized it as an immortal Dao communication token. The letter stated that Z2 and the guards were at a military base 30 miles away, temporarily safe but unable to leave for special reasons. Ye Shun frowned, recalling that in his past life that place had gathered ability users from Zhangcheng. Scene shifted to the suburban base, where Feng Wu grumbled, asking if the message was sent. He sighed, saying Ye Shun should have been home by now, probably frantic at losing his sister. Z2 confirmed that the flying sword letter had certainly reached the elder with no mistake. Feng Wu nodded, cursing that the communication ban in the base was ridiculous. Just then, someone entered, saying without Z2's help she would have already met her younger brother. That person suggested using military authority to take custody of Ye Shen. Feng Wu waved dismissively, sneering that the man was too cautious, as Ye Shun would surely flee if the army tried to find him. Z2 agreed, urging to act quickly so they could finish and return. In a sealed room, Ye Shun muttered as he received the mission. He turned to Bai Yu, scratched his head, then shouted that the elder sister was insane. Inwardly, he calculated that self-defense was easy, but opposing the whole army was dangerous. he decided to use the blessed celestial cave palace as a retreat. He asked Bai Yu how they should act, whether to make a move. Bai Yu pondered, saying to set aside the sister for now and focus on preparations. Both left Ye Shen's apartment. At a hidden corner, Ye Shen stopped walking. He clasped his hands to form a seal, aura surging like preparing a thunder technique. Bai Yu was startled, asking what he was doing. He laughed, saying he wanted to go big while she worried about drawing attention. As expected, the energy eruption attracted all nearby monsters. Bai Yu reassured him, transforming into ASHE and shooting an empowered ice arrow. Ye Shen was astonished at her explosive strength. In midair appeared the pure Yang immortal mansion, shining with vitality. He muttered that he hadn't expected summoning this residence would consume so much spiritual power. Monsters swarmed in, but Bai Yu bravely held them back. Ye Shen roared, casting a barrier as if turning into a super warrior. The immortal mansion descended, its explosion shaking the land. The structure slowly lowered, with the gate bearing the two characters Chunyang. The pure Yang aura spread, forming a solid defensive barrier. Bai Yu was stunned and asked for clarity. Ye Shen explained it was Ancestor Law's mansion, usable as a shelter base. Bai Yu questioned the origin of this thing. He fabricated that Ancestor Law gifted it to him in a dream. Bai Yu was half convinced, while he laughed, saying it didn't matter, they should just explore inside. They stepped in together. Bai Yu was briefly stunned. In front of her appeared a mansion filled with pure Yang energy, and she asked why it was so vast. Ye Shen explained it was an independent space, with the buildings only as shells. Bai Yu worried about possible intrusion. He replied that unless above level 70, the protective formation was impenetrable. Scene shifted to an alchemy room. Ye Shen picked up a bottle of pills. Seeing only fragments left, he sighed that they had expired. He asked Bai Yu if she found anything. She shook her head, saying it was all dust. With the pill plan failed, he told her to search the weapon forging area instead. The scene moved to the city under dark night. The military continued regular patrols. A soldier grumbled about the chaos, saying they survived only thanks to the captain's leadership. Suddenly, another soldier rushed in. Panicked. He urgently demanded to meet the captain, having just returned from scouting. Gasping, he reported a strange structure surrounded by monsters, certain death if approached, so they had to avoid it. The captain and comrades exchanged cold glances. Scene returned to the pure Yang immortal mansion. Ye Shen ordered the system to open status, immediately receiving warning of someone approaching. He chuckled at the guest's arrival. Inside the mansion was peaceful, while outside was chaotic. The army strained to fight hordes of monsters flooding the streets. A terrified soldier suggested retreat since they couldn't hold on. The female captain's sharp gaze flashed as she drew her sword, ordering them to keep firing support while she rushed ahead to investigate. She shot forward like lightning, her slaughtering speed shocking everyone. Her subordinates were stunned, praising and discussing her strength and ability user rank. From afar, Ye Shen observed through the interface, thinking her power had grown fast, but revealing himself now was unwise, so he chose to avoid. The woman advanced to the mansion's gate. Her expression shifted when she saw the protective barrier. Without hesitation, she slashed down with her sword, but the barrier was solid and unmoved. Then the entire mansion vanished, leaving her frozen in shock. At the same time, Ye Shen and Bai Yu were driving a borrowed off-road vehicle. Thanks to the hidden spatial feature, the mansion disappeared. Ye Shen sneered that otherwise it would spread across the net, while Bai Yu worried it might be government forces. Ye Shen calmly said not everyone in uniform was truly state military, as many impersonated, and he preferred to avoid conflict. He noted that seeking the army was only a last resort. At the suburban base of Jiangcheng, two veteran generals leisurely played chess. Old Guo, the deputy chief, asked for opinions on the chaotic situation. Huo Zhenxiao, the base director, replied that no orders had come yet, wondering if they alone could handle it. Old Guo sneered, directly mentioning the girl Xia Xiu and suspecting Huo had sent her. The two continued discussing various trivial matters. They talked about recruiting ability users, but most only cared for salary, making loyalty doubtful. Huo hesitated between killing or keeping them. In the end, he concluded they couldn't kill recklessly, or it would cause serious consequences. Old Guo asked if he intended to grant official posts to the outsiders. Huo admitted the idea. He argued that the government's advantage lay in being the only one able to issue official positions. Old Guo frowned, worrying the higher-ups would disapprove, and not everyone wanted such posts, making it difficult. Huo coldly declared he would take responsibility, forcing the weak, bribing or cooperating with the strong to establish mutually beneficial relations. Old Guo nodded but still wanted to report to superiors. Huo scolded him for always bowing to authority. At night, Ye Shen and Bai Yu hid in the bushes near the base. Bai Yu whispered that the guards were so strict even birds couldn't slip through. Ye Shen agreed and planned. He said he would sneak in to rescue Feng Wu and Lao Ji, while she supported. If successful, he'd send a green signal, then they would escape together. But if a red signal appeared, she must withdraw immediately and wait for later contact. Bai Yu bit her lip, insisting on going with him. Ye Shen sternly reassured her he wouldn't let her face danger. He opened his backpack and donned legendary armor. He activated the stealth ability. His figure vanished completely. Like a ghost, he slipped through the base's corners. A guard glimpsed a faint shadow, suspicious. A comrade laughed, saying not to imagine things, as even ghosts wouldn't come here. Ye Shen used a swap skill and instantly disappeared. Bai Yu was startled, thinking she was too tense and seeing illusions. In her heart, she only wished the authorities would stabilize soon so she could live peacefully. Suddenly, soldiers poured out of the base, shouting to form teams to hunt the intruder. Ye Shen had been discovered, and soldiers shouted orders for suppressive fire. He smirked with disdain, thinking it excessive to mobilize so much just to catch him. In an instant, he rushed forward and knocked down several soldiers. Loudspeakers blared, reporting the target exposed in Zone B2, engaging and needing reinforcements. Gunfire roared as troops fiercely pursued. Ye Shen blamed himself for carelessness, admitting the base was formidable. He decided to escape for now and plan later while hating the two troublemakers. In fact, 10 minutes earlier, he had secretly slipped inside the base. His sharp eyes scanned everywhere to assess the layout. All routes were tightly guarded, with patrols less than 30 meters apart, ready to call reinforcements at any noise. However, every half hour there was a gap during shift change, the only chance to act. Ye Shen knew he had to seize the moment and find Lao Ji and Feng Wu quickly, or conflict would erupt. When a patrol soldier just turned away, he darted forward like a shadow, leaving the man no time to react. The soldier barely made a sound before being neatly subdued. Ye Shen smirked, whispering to borrow his uniform and let him rest in peace. Moments later, he appeared at the cafeteria. After careful observation and not seeing those he sought, he decided to infiltrate further, otherwise withdraw and plan long-term. Suddenly, a man with a sword blocked him, arrogantly demanding he hand over ice cream. The man bragged about just killing 2 demons. He cursed the people around as trash who must obey him. Ye Shen narrowed his eyes as info appeared. Lu Rangxia, a level 5 immortal arts adept, skilled in sword-riding technique, basic armament, from a mediocre faction. He mocked the man, saying if he wanted ice cream, buy it himself. At those words, the crowd burst into laughter. The man's face flushed red as he roared. He was a noble ability user, challenging Ye Shen to withstand 1 sword strike. The sword shot forward, and the crowd screamed in alarm. Ye Shen only tilted slightly, catching the blade between 2 fingers with ease. Lu Rangxia froze, unable to believe his trump card was nullified so easily. Ye Shen coldly scolded him as mentally ill, then casually told him to scram elsewhere to cause trouble. The crowd was stunned into silence, no one daring to speak. At that moment, the base loudspeakers announced an intruder who had stolen a guard's gear, ordering all witnesses to report immediately. All eyes turned toward Ye Shen, full of suspicion. Lu Rangxia laughed, declaring he had been exposed after all. He arrogantly proclaimed he hadn't used full strength before and would now go all out to catch the intruder. But Ye Shen vanished instantly, ghost-like. The crowd cursed angrily, shouting for him to stop. Urgent reports were sent to the minister and deputy minister with full details. The report stated the intruder had taken down a patrol guard, disguised, and infiltrated the base. Without the chance encounter, detection would have taken much longer. The minister roared in fury, demanding why 3 layers of defense were like child's play. Someone shouted confirmation that the stranger had been sighted. Old Guo leapt up to ask, and a subordinate reported the target was seen in a corridor, with Lu Rangxia and the defense team pursuing. But his strength was far greater, and the current forces might not be able to stop him. Old Guo pressed if there were other ability users in the base. A subordinate reported only 2 recently brought by Dr. Sun Yue, not yet officially joined. He urgently ordered those 2 to be sent to support Lu Rangxia, to capture the intruder and stop him from achieving his goal. Those 2 were Zitu and Feng Wu. Feng Wu sighed, missing home and worrying her younger brother was being bullied. Zitu laughed, also wanting to meet her brother, curious why she mentioned him every day. Just then, someone rushed in with urgent news. The base had been infiltrated, and the 3 of them were asked to block the intruder's escape route. The group was bewildered, not understanding what was happening.